Hello, everybody. This is Nannette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution, and we are reading What God Said. And Lynda is our reader. And last week, I've got to get that recording up because that was an intense, good in a good way. It was a really intense discussion. And I think it was a really good discussion. So anyway, today is March 13th, and here in the US and Canada and other places, as I understand it, have turned their clocks
ahead
1 hour. I had to stop and think about that. So anyway, Lynda, you want to take it away?
Certainly. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to Nicole. It's a new name in our group. Okay, we are reading What God Said by Neale Walsch. We are on page 109, Getting to Awareness. The sincere seeker traveling the pathway to awareness may be expected to say, okay, I understand. I now have these questions. How do I get to these three places? And can I hopscotch across one or two of them, or must I go through them step by step? The answer to the first question is that to get to them, one may find a map useful. And that, as I have said, is what Conversations with God offers. It's an instruction book, or in this case, a series of them, 9 books in all. It is a guide for the unendingly inquisitive mind. It offers a blueprint, a pattern, a touchstone, a template for the heart, a way to get there. Yet it is not the only way to awareness. It makes this point clear time and time again, just as we are doing here. Yet it is one way, and for millions across the globe, it has been a very effective way. And yes, one can go straight to knowing. It is not necessary to stop at hope and faith, any more than it is necessary to step on every rung of a ladder to get to the top. But this can sometimes make the climb easier. So let it be okay with you if you're not at the place of absolute awareness yet, or if you've found yourself there and then found yourself not there, and then there again, and then not there again. In my own life, I have moved in and out of the place of total knowing, and I have not so far been able to remain there for a vastly extended period, much less the rest of my life. But some people have. And not just ancient masters, saints, or sages either. There are people living on the planet right now who have. Some of these people whom I know personally have. And so I can promise you it is possible. I'm working on going there and staying there permanently. If you want to work on that with me, you're invited to join the community at CWG Connect. Thanks to today's marvelous technologies, people from all over the world can now connect with each other, share with each other, encourage each other, support each other, remind each other, and walk with each other on the journey of the soul. This global community is a loving group of people who have found Conversations with God to be a wonderful pathway to awareness. If you would feel supported by joining me there, simply get on any computer and go to www.cwgconnect.com. Applying this message to everyday life. The tools for life, or stepping stones to awareness, that I have described as hope, faith, and knowing, are all, I want to make it clear again, powerful. The first is powerful, the second is even more powerful, and the third is most powerful. May I suggest 1 or 2 ways to use these tools on your day-to-day encounters with life? Begin to observe your own language around situations and circumstances as you go through life. While it is not necessary or even recommended that you watch every word that comes out of your mouth in order to make sure that you speak appropriately, spiritual correctness is a first cousin to political correctness, and both can sometimes be a blight upon the land. It is useful to know that words do carry energy. Indeed, they are made up of energy, and words that are repeated over and over again tend to create a mindset that can have a long-term effect on one's thinking, and thus one's process of personal creation. Decide to change the words, "I hope," to the words, "I feel very sure," or even "I have faith that all will occur in a perfect order." Later, as you slowly eliminate "I hope" from your vocabulary, switch from "I feel sure" or "I have faith" to "I know." When engaging specifically in the process of personal creation, as opposed to simply talking around the house or chatting with friends, try to consciously invoke the energy of "I know," giving yourself permission to become less and less requiring of particular outcomes and more relaxed around whatever outcomes may occur. Let "I know that everything will turn out perfectly" begin to replace "I hope" or "I feel sure" that this or that particular outcome will occur. If you want to know more about the process of personal creation, obtain and read Happier Than God. And feeling, add feeling to your words when you say or even think them, especially if you are using your words and thoughts in seeking to deliberately experience something. Conversations with God says that feelings are the language of the soul. Use this language of feelings to communicate to the universe what it is you wish to experience. If there really is a particular and specific outcome that you have a deep desire to see made manifest in your life, use feelings with your verbalizations. Allow yourself to picture a particular outcome in your mind, and then let yourself feel exactly how you would feel if what you were picturing was happening. This golden trio of thought, visualization, feeling is the most powerful combination I have ever found to call forth, to magnetize from the contextual field of infinite possibilities, specific results and experiences. Let go of expectations or requirements when engaging the process of personal creation. Once you set your intention and state your desire, drop any idea that it has to happen this way or that way only. Say, "Thank you, God, for this or something better," and mean it. Do an awareness exercise at least once every day for the next 30 days. Change the time of day that you do this. Make it say 10 a.m. on Monday noon on Tuesday, 3 p.m. on Wednesday, 6 in the evening on Thursday, late night on Friday, and so on. Actually schedule it into your smartphone. When the alarm goes off, stop whatever you're doing and take an awareness inventory. Ask yourself, what am I aware of right here, right now? What was I acutely aware of an hour or two ago? If I wasn't aware of anything specific then, is there something that I am aware of now as I look back on it? Stop and breathe deeply. Look around you. See what you see when you look deeply into every single thing offering itself for your attention in the present. Hear what you hear. Feel into what you feel in the moment. Know what you know about it, and know that you know. Awareness can be cultivated. Give yourself permission to move into your state of awareness, and then go beyond it to a place where you become aware that you are aware. This is like seeing your reflection in a mirror, in a mirror, in a mirror. All of us have had that experience. You can do this with your mind as well. Let yourself call upon yourself, invite yourself to be aware of what you are aware of, and aware that you are aware of what you are aware of. This can be a mighty tool in the expanding of your consciousness. Remember, awareness cannot be expanded, but consciousness can. Give your permission to be fully conscious as much of the time as possible. The day's events, the to-do lists, the distractions of the moment, the pressures and details and requirements of your life can be compelling and diverting. It's okay, just notice it. Soon you will learn how to use the events and pressures and requirements to lead you to, rather than away from, your innermost awareness, and to feel in fullness, rather only in part, your highest consciousness, higher consciousness. And speaking of that, obtain and immediately read what I suspect will become one of the most important books of your life, A Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes Jr., who celebrated his continuation day a number of years ago, but who left for all of us a gift of unspeakable proportion. This book altered the course of my life. I will be forever grateful. I will be grateful for it forever. It's available from most online bookstores. End of chapter.
Okay. Now, where's Murphy? Oh, I'll bet you he doesn't know about the time change. Who would like to start?
Yeah, I have a question. On the page 130, he's talking about awareness and consciousness. Well, they would both translate to the same word in Dutch. So I struggle to see what's the difference between awareness and consciousness.
That's a good question. I don't have the answer.
I'm going to take a stab at it.
Okay.
So awareness, I believe, is what the soul has. And consciousness is what I believe the body has. So consciousness is our mind. It's a physical, it's an aspect of our physical environment. Whereas awareness transcends the body. Does that help?
Yes. I'm actually writing down what you just said. So,
And Mary looks like she disagrees with me.
Whoops, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I don't disagree. I was looking for that Ken Keyes book, A Guide to Higher Consciousness or whatever it's called, to make sure that I don't forget to look for it. That's all. I was peering at a page on my
Okay.
Sorry. Just leave that up to make sure I look for it later.
Yeah.
Has anybody here read that book? I'm just curious.
I have not. I've heard him mention it before, but I have not read it.
I saw it mentioned in another book by Walsch, so it's already on my book wish list, but I don't always have. There's always more books on the wish list than in my budget, so
Yeah.
I understand. I often put things in my cart online and then leave them there until I can get to them. That way I remember that they're there in my wish list. But
yeah.
then if I do get it, will I read it? That is a question mark. Anyway.
It's not going to be easy,
Sorry.
it doesn't look like.
I don't know, there's used copies.
Oh, yeah, you might be able to find a used copy. Actually, that's all that's available, really, are used copies. It doesn't look like it's still in print.
That's interesting.
I'm perfectly happy with a decent used copy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get a new one for $124.28.
No, thank you.
Oh, there's another new one for $281.
Good Lord.
Thank you.
Can you download it to Kindle?
No, doesn't look like there's a Kindle version of it.
No, but there are used copies that are like $7 with
Yeah.
free shipping.
I can do that.
That's what I'll do.
And
Yeah.
it will be hard to find a used copy if it's never been translated to Dutch, because you can find many used books in English.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's something that he says in here. Hang on. Let me find it.
And welcome, Kirsten.
Right. So when he talks about begin to observe your own language around situations, one of the things that I like to do is I like to have a mantra or a saying of some kind that that I know is energetically tuned, and I'll repeat that. I'll use that as a space filler. So if I'm not consciously engaged in something that I need to be either talking to somebody or listening to something, I'm running a tape in my head, so that instead of, they talk about how we have like 60,000 thoughts a day. But unfortunately, a lot of those thoughts are the same thoughts over and over again. And they're not necessarily good thoughts. They're usually remembering something somebody said to us that hurt us, or we end up thinking about something that somebody did that we don't understand. We get bogged down in that sort of day-to-day monkey mind. A lot of people call it monkey mind. So I started this practice years ago, and I've expanded on it some, but basically when I first started it, I used a phrase out of The Secret by Rhonda Burns. It was 10 words. I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. Since then, I have added to it, because that phrase is not necessarily numerologically tuned. I have added to it generous, wise, and kind. And by adding those 3 words to it, it makes it energetically a high frequency. So, but Matt Kahn said something the other day that is it's shorter and it's as simple, and it's a 9 of frequency. And that is, right when I have to try and say it, right? I can't think of it. I believe it is, I am surrounded. No, the light of the divine is always with me and grounding me. That was it. The light of the divine is always with me and grounding me. And that's a great, I find that, I actually like that one at night when I'm laying in bed. It's very comforting for me. So I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you.
I want to remark on a couple of things that Lynda said, just for nuance or something. Like thoughts that might not be good, I would say useful, versus, just to not be judging our thoughts as good and bad. Thoughts that are useful versus thoughts that are sort of damaging. Things that we often think about when we're in that state, also included for me a lot. Things I did that I feel bad about, oh, I messed this up, I messed that up, taking my inventory of all the ways in which I was wrong and bad. And then, there was one more thing. Oh, a thing I used a lot when I was in that state, it's different than focusing on the divine, but it was when I was in that state of feeling like life was really hard. And um, that life is hard. And I just started thinking life loves and supports me. And that has changed my life a lot as being sort of my filler thing when I don't have anything else on my mind, just to be reminding myself that life loves and supports me. The other one, which I got from a Louise Hay book, is love is everywhere and I am loving and lovable. Um, those two things affected the quality of my life a lot by integrating them into my awareness, consciousness, whatever the right word is. Just they became part of what I believe about life, and that made a real difference.
I think too that for me, one of the things that I do is when I start to get down on myself about things in my past, and I need to remind myself that I don't, according to conversations with God, I don't need to be forgiven.
Exactly.
However, for people that don't think like we think, I think of that quote. I think it was I think it was Mark Twain who said, not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I've tried, because I'm in a long tiff with my daughter. And I mentioned that to her. I said, dear, I'm forgiven. And you are spending way too much time on why you haven't forgiven. Because it's not healthy. And I can honestly say that I've forgiven everyone I know for acts that they may have perpetrated on me or done to me. Or disappointed me or whatever. And I believe that forgiving is something we do for ourselves. And I think about Immaculate Ilibagiza, who was the woman that spent 90 days in a bathroom with 7 other women during the Rwandan genocide. And she had, through the window, she was being hidden by a person on the offending side, but he did not agree with what was going on. And he was hiding her and these 7 other women. And it's in quite by accident that I came across a picture of her now sitting in that bathroom and imagining how on earth these people could have been sitting together. But the point that I'm trying to make is that through the window of that bathroom, Immaculate heard her brothers and her parents speaking and screaming. And then she heard them murdered with machetes. And she went to the prison, not immediately. I think a year may have passed. She went to the prison And she forgave them. And what she said when she was speaking at this event that I was at was, she said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And hey, you're not going to bite me. So forgiveness is a real mixed bag of stuff, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Over.
Well, and let's just touch on the some of the background behind what you started with, which is that ultimately, when we come into ourselves and we understand that we are divinity in a physical body, and we grasp what Neale has been talking about all these years in these books, we come to the place where we understand that nothing ever needs forgiving because nothing was ever wrong in the first place. If everything is divinity, then everything is a result of divinity. There isn't anything wrong here. The only thing that's wrong is how we interpret things and how we look at things. And although when people do things to hurt us, there is this idea that, you know, we need to forgive them for that. Ultimately, if we're in that place, we understand that at any given moment, everybody is doing what they believe is the best thing for them. And while it hurts us when those things happen, when you realize that each of us is just trying, right, to survive here, to get along, to be, we understand that it's like, we talked about this the other day about not fighting with life, right? Everything that happens because it has to happen for whatever reason, because it's happened, right? That's just how life works. It's happening. It's happening. Every time we get into a place where we want to argue about what's happening and make it wrong, we're just creating misery for ourselves and for the other people around us, because it is what it is. So being able to accept it as it shows up and understand that most of the time when people do things that hurt us, it probably wasn't even intended that way. And so there's an element of like taking things personally that we have to learn to let go of, right? And I think that when we, it's not easy work, but when we do this work, we can come to a place where it never even occurs. So for me, it never occurs to me that I ever have to forgive anybody, because I never get into that place.
Right.
Because I've never judged what they did, because I'm at that place where I understand the process. So I thought it would be good to just kind of dig into that a little, because especially for people who were raised in religions like Catholicism, where guilt is you know, a thing to do, and forgiveness is a thing to do. We're changing all that.
Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I want to expand a little on a few things Lynda said. And I would say, instead of accepting life as it is, I say allowing, because
Right.
it's easier than accepting. Accepting implies an element of agreement that I often can't get to in that moment. It's like, okay,
Good point.
I allow it to be what it is, but you don't have to like it. That's a quote you've heard before too. You can understand that, you know, and you don't have to say that you're not going to try to change the things that are within your power to affect. It's hard because because we do have the dualistic world, where things are good and good and evil, and it's very hard to get to a place where you can say people are doing things that seem like they are causing a lot of harm and not labeling that as bad or evil. And that requires the shift from 3D to a higher awareness where you understand that things are unfolding in a way that they need to in order for the progress to happen. So sometimes those things that look bad need to happen for something else, to happen. And I've seen that in my own life to an extent. So that's been helpful to me. I also wanted to say to Nannette, telling other people that they have to forgive is not usually a useful endeavor. And that's something I've learned, because I used to be like a forgiveness proselytizer because I saw what it did in my own life. I was sort of sitting in that place of like, well, I've learned how to forgive, and it gives me a level of peace that holding on to grudges didn't. But, sometimes people have suffered trauma and they aren't in a place where they can do that. And telling them to do that is never helpful. People have to get to their own awareness. All this stuff, we can put it out there, but, everybody deals with their own stuff their own way. And that's fine and good and okay. It's like pointing out another way is awesome, but making people feel wrong for the way that they're doing it is not good. The other thing I want to say on the subject of forgiveness, which I totally agree is unnecessary when you get to a certain point where Lynda's sitting and where I sit sometimes too, is really important is just forgiving yourself, because all of that, I think that all of that resentful energy ultimately comes from, we're holding a grudge against ourselves because we didn't behave the way we wanted to. I think that may be true. And so a thing that helped me a lot was just like, I don't get down on myself anymore, because I don't talk to myself any way that I wouldn't talk to my best friend or like a little child who I love and adore, right? Why should I be any less kind to myself than I am to the people that I love the most in the world? So a negative self-talk, I don't do that anymore, because it's really damaging and it hurts us. And then, we're the hurt people who hurt other people. Like how would 3-year-old Mary feel about me, beating up on myself because I did something? So I just don't do that anymore. And I really recommend that as a practice. Don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to your best friend, or like, your child, or I don't have children, but my little nieces and nephews. And I think of them in their most adorable age, like they're all growing up now, but like little 4-year-old perfect child, you don't want to do anything to hurt their awareness of themselves and damage their own self-regard. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you all.
Yeah, I want to add something real quick to what you were saying. Is for me, and this does, everybody does their own thing. I find it important for me to forgive someone so that I can let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Because once I've forgiven, and it's not something I get up and say, world, I have forgiven. It's a very private moment.
Right.
And it's just saying, I don't want to live with this. I don't want to feel this feeling anymore.
Yeah.
I've spent enough time with it and I want to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at it. And one of the things I want to add to what you said, Mary, about children especially, is to never forget that even those of us in this group right now. The child that we have is within us. Our child is within us. And I stop and think sometimes, would I treat the little Nannette like that? You know, and that is helpful. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Bima or Kirsten or Reed, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I like also want to add something to what Mary said, because I've been depressed from roughly age 10 to age 25. And then when I was 25, a therapist told me, well, you have to be kind to yourself. And he convinced me to wear a bracelet to remind myself to be kind. And at first I thought, well, this is just another ridiculous therapist. But I started doing it, and I started realizing I want to be kind to other people, but I'm never kind to myself. So I started rethinking all the mean thoughts to myself. And a few months after this, my depression disappeared. And I didn't know why until years later when I saw the connection. And I almost never get angry with people, but when a friend of mine starts talking about themselves in a negative way, I get defensive and I'm saying, hey, you're talking about my very good friend here. You don't talk about my friend like this. You have to be kind when you talk about my friend. And it's changing the way how my friends think about themselves, because it's like I'm standing up for them against themselves.
I've done that too.
That's a really good
That's
point.
my friend you're talking about.
That's
Yeah.
a really good point. And I'm going to, I've heard it before, but I'm going to remember that the next time I hear somebody. Kitty, I've not had it with you today. And oh, you just tried to bite me.
Bye, Bima. We love you.
Okay, bye, Bima. Love you. I don't remember what I was saying. I was on the verge of being bitten, and my little self was like,
We're saying that you heard that before about like standing up against your friend about themselves. That's what we were talking about.
yes. And I've thought about that when my kids get down on themselves.
Yeah.
And I've said, you know, you shouldn't be, in my humble opinion, that's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, I'm just going to use this for right now. It's not a good thing to do. It doesn't solve anything.
Right.
you
It's
know.
not useful to
There, yeah.
Neale's language. It's not useful, you know?
No, it isn't. And it only serves to mess with your own psyche. You know, it's like,
And then you become more hurt and you're more likely to hurt other people. I mean, so much of this, Lynda was saying, I think, I don't know, that so many people are walking around basically broken. It's like we're raised in ways that it's changing, I think, and hope. But like, you know, we're raised in ways that damage us, and we're trying to grow out of those things. So many of the ways that we've been raised were damaging to our sweet little person.
And
Oh,
we're
boy.
raised by damaged people,
Right.
right? So it's this,
That's why it's like they
this
don't know
trickle
any-
down effect. You know, we've got a society now of people that have been raised by broken people that were raised by broken people that were raised by broken people. It's a lot to climb our way out of.
But I think with each generation, it gets a little better, speaking from what I see in my life. And maybe not, maybe there's other roads that are happening in other people's lives. But like the people I see, everyone who has children has done a little better than the generation before, even if it's still a shitty job. I'm thinking right now of the father of my sister's children, you know. He was not a good father, but compared to his parents who were like abominable, he was trying and he did better than they did. You know, that's what I see, but then I always am looking for the best.
Well, and you know what? I think that's really important. I think it's very important to be able to see, especially before we speak, is to think a little bit before we go down that road of that you were talking about. And I think it helps ourselves. I was very blessed. I mean, they weren't perfect, but to me, they were perfect parents.
Mhm.
And I just feel extraordinarily blessed in that department because I've heard horror stories. And I've got to tell you that my previous roommate, she despised the earth her mother walked upon. And that really just, ugh, I couldn't handle that. And she was not one to take any advice, so I just kept my mouth shut. Over.
Well, when we have broken mothers, it can be challenging. Speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
You know, my mother spent from the time I was 6 till the time I was 15, mostly passed out on the couch from alcohol. But when she wasn't passed out, she was either beating me or we were in public and she was embarrassing me. So.
Is your mom still living, Lynda?
No. And then she spent from the time I was 15 until the time I was, I think, like 55, in a nursing home tied to a chair or tied to her bed, because anytime anybody got within striking distance, she'd hit them.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. And I don't want you to think that's the first time I've ever heard of somebody's parents being I'm going to put it real nicely, not healthy.
Right.
And I mean, and there are certain people that pop up from when I was a kid. It's like my next door neighbor, my best friend lived right next door to me. And I was only about 6, maybe even 5, when I met this girl, Susan. And I remember thinking from the very get-go, something was wrong with her father. I didn't know what it was, but I steered clear of that man. I did not want to have, because I think we have this, especially when we're small, we have that feeling of like, nope. Will Robinson, no. And I think if it's, and it, as you age, if we can remember those things as a child, if something physically doesn't feel right, to take care of that little person inside of us, which then takes care of the big person. Over and out.
I think it's important to say here that, you know, a lot of times that feeling gets taught out at children, like, you know, kiss your uncle so-and-so, even if you feel no, you know, it's like we haven't allowed children to have their own bodily autonomy in these situations. And so then we stop trusting those instincts because we're taught that they're wrong and we're not supposed to. So that's the thing that I see is changing now with children, you know, like my nieces and nephews have always been able to, you say no. I'm like, can I get a hug? Then they hug me. They don't want to, that's okay too. Now I just say, who wants to hug me, and let them decide so no one feels put on a spot. Like, I want to hug. Anyone want to hug me?
You just reminded me of something I saw on, it was probably a YouTube video, and it was pretty cool. It was this teacher, and the kids were in a line out the door to the room went to the outdoors. And the teacher would greet every single child. And she would have these 3 things with like popsicle sticks. And one would say, I want a hug. I want to just say good morning. And I can't remember what the 3rd thing was.
Like a high five.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And, and if they didn't want to do anything, she just said, that's okay. And I thought that's the kind of teaching that you're talking about that I believe is needed, Mary. If you don't want to, you don't want to, and you don't need to explain why.
Allowing children to be full little human beings. I mean, yes, they're children and we need to teach them and stuff, but we need to teach them better than we were taught in the past, maybe. And we're learning. I really think every generation, because I think what happens is the collective consciousness, like everything gets added each generation. So the new ones coming in already are on a level that's different than the ones before. Because I see that in the children. They're like, little Buddhas, some of them. And if they're allowed to retain that connection, I'm just sort of amazed at who they can become. Whereas for so many of us, like if you had your imaginary friend or whatever, it's like, oh, you just have it's like our connections to the unseen world were, kind of not nurtured. And I can't think of the other word for sort of knocked down. They were like not just not nurtured, but they were destroyed sort of because to get us to fit in, right? So I believe that these things are changing, and this is why we're where we are to this point where we really are at what I feel is it's a new moment where we have the opportunity to really go in a direction. It's like that's what's going on. It's that kicking donkey Lynda talks about, but we're at the threshold of this, this new energy. Maybe we're past the threshold. And so the old just starts, really fighting to keep us in the old paradigm. But there's a real movement that's like, no, we're done with that. We're moving forward, and you can either come with us or get out of the way, but you're not going to stop us.
I agree.
And that's what's playing out in the Ukraine. As I said that, I just felt that so clearly, so I had to add it. I hope that's okay.
For those of you that are on my Facebook page, I just posted something this morning about the Ukraine. It's a little long, but it's a very good read. And I'm not going to tell you about it, but the picture, so that you can find it, is of this very thin youth holding wheat in her hands. And anyway, it's a very good read. Does anybody else have anything they want to say before I pull over to the curb and let Mary do her thing? Okay, Mary, do your thing.
This one's going out to the tiny little children. the ones who are out there in the world today and the ones who are still inside of us, right? We all have that tiny little child inside of us. And I think the more we learn to just nurture our own little child inside, the more we cultivate that energy and give that to the world. Because I think that is our most loving, nurturing, appreciative, generous, kind energy. And the more we nurture that in ourselves by giving it to ourselves, and then we give it to the little child who maybe didn't get it when they needed it. You know, we all got some. Did we get enough? And did we get, I mean, I'm assuming we all got some don't get any, but that's the beauty and that's the magic. We can now give that to ourselves when we need it, which is always. And you know what else? We can look at other people and think about the little child in them, and that can soften our heart. Lynda mentioned when she has issues with people, like seeing the baby, you know, they were all little tiny babies once. And that's a great way to soften our hearts, is to remember that we were all tiny baby once. And there's inside each of us, there is that little child. And all that little child wants is to be seen, to be heard, to be held in a loving, high regard. And the more we do that for ourselves, the more we'll be able to turn that vision out into the world and hold the world and everyone in it with that same loving regard. And that's how we make a new world. That's what I see today. Thank you all for being here with me, dreaming this new world together.
Thank you, Mary. That was very nice and appropriate. And we'll all meet here next week, and I'm sure somebody will. Ariana's coming to the room right now.
Oh, my love.
I
just thought about her too.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring her in. But anyway, one of the things I want Mary and Lynda to remember is me next week on Friday. Hi, Ariana. We have switched to daylight. We've switched to daylight savings times. So we are an hour.
She can't hear you because she doesn't have her earbuds in.
Yeah, now she has her earbuds in.
Can you hear me? Ariana, can you hear me?
Yes. Now I hear. I had no earphones and I haven't heard.
Okay.
Yes.
We are on daylight savings time starting last night. So we're actually ending the meeting because it's an hour later. And I should have mentioned it last week, and for that I apologize. Forgive me. We were just talking a lot about forgiveness. Anyway, it's nice to have you pop in. And Mary said, when I said that, oh, there's Ariana, and Mary said, I was just thinking about her. So anyway, Ariana,
An hour earlier
next week.
We'll be at yes. Now it's 8 o'clock in Europe. At 7 o'clock. PM.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then next week at 7, and the week after that
Only-
we have our daylight savings. So then it's back to 8.
It will be always this change, or only
No.
for 1 week.
Just this week and next week, and then the week after that we
It'll
have the daylight
stabilize again.
savings in
Uh-huh.
Europe
2
too.
weeks. For 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know why.
Why can't we coordinate it with Europe?
What I was just
Well,
going
we
to say.
used to do it at the same time, and now we do it earlier. Why? Why do we have to keep doing it earlier? Why don't we go back?
Because pretty soon it'll be all on the same day. It's like daylight savings time starts today and ends tonight.
Yes, but
Oh.
thank you that you take account time in Europe.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll see you next week. And I love you all. And
just
Thank
put my notes for the evening in the chat, so Adriana can read what we discussed.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
great.
Perfect. All right, everybody.
So let
Alright.
everyone copy the notes before you close the Zoom.
Yeah, I will.
That's all.
Did you get them, Ariana?
Oh, she's gone. Oh no, someone else.
Excuse me. Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody. I love you all. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care.
Oh, it's
Have a nice
finished.
week.
Oh, yes. I will copy. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. All right.
This-
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, Kirsten.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.